Hello and welcome to another edition of Veterans to Success, the podcast where I interview veterans and people who support veterans, actually. And guys have got amazing stories and want to share with you. So let's jump straight in with Nick O'Brien. Hello, Nick. How are you doing? Thanks for joining me today.
Doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so you don't need to have massive brains to detect that you have an American accent there. Where do you hail from, or where are you speaking from today, in fact?
Currently residing in Florida, but originally from the other coast in California.
Oh, wow. Nice places, and probably a bit warmer than it's been here at times. Yeah. So listen, let's jump straight in at with the big question on what brought you to where you are now, and nipping straight back to your childhood. So before military times, and you've got an interesting story, right? Because we're reverse engineering this, and we had a chat about this, didn't we, Nick?
Right.
Yeah, because it's not like we're looking at life before the military, as in that was a brief time. That's been quite a long time, and you'll get to know why. So let's just jump straight back to your childhood at a time when you can first remember about the family setting, what was going on.
Right. Yeah, it's like you said, kind of reverse engineering it. Now that I'm in the military, I spent a lot of time kind of growing up and in the civilian sector myself, where that was before the military versus a lot of people getting in when they're younger. So yeah, as far as I can remember, just kind of growing up in a military family, that was always a part of what I wanted to do. And it's a part of just essentially like my childhood, moving around, kind of following my father as he was in the Marine Corps. Just retired last summer after 35 years as a full bird colonel. So it was fun to kind of send him off last summer and kind of see the culmination of his whole career, because he was in for 35 years. I'm 33 now, so my entire life was really as part of the military. And we kind of talked about it before we got going, when you don't really realize it in the beginning, but like, even with one of your family members kind of signs that contract, you inadvertently are in the military as well. So I remember growing up, moving around and not really understanding why we were doing it or why he was gone for so long. And as I got older, I started to appreciate it more and more and kind of see the gravity and the scope of what it was like. But I really had kind of a normal childhood when you take all that stuff out of it. I just went to a lot more schools, lived in a lot more states, kind of got to do cooler things than a lot of my friends when we lived off base, like telling them that like a CH-46 helicopter landed on our soccer field at school and that we got to go inside of it as part of recess. Not many people get to do that. So there's a lot of cool things that were afforded that I didn't really appreciate at the time just because it seemed normal. But then as soon as we started living off base more and I got away and went to college, I started to kind of look back on that stuff and appreciate it more, even for all the hard stuff and the hard moves and kind of decisions that had to be made. It kind of shaped who I was, and it ultimately led to my decision and a lot of my family's decisions to join the military as well.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. And there's a whole load of stuff going on there, because your dad served 35 years, you're 33. So yeah, of course, military is through and through. Now, the thing is that I recognise that it would have been tough at times for your mum, for instance, your mother, bringing you up, and your brothers, because that's when the father figure is away. How did that affect things, do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, my mom is amazing. She had me and two of my younger brothers. So when my dad was gone, it was chaos in the house too. Um, and I think like a lot of people too, they were from a small town and they actually just moved back to that small town, like right on the border of Illinois and Iowa. and they'd never really been outside of that zip code too much. And when they moved and my dad enlisted, they moved almost halfway across the country to go to California, had me, and my dad was deployed at the time. So my mom was by herself and had different family members come and visit and things like that. We had a really good support system, but still, you're kind of in unfamiliar territory all the time. And she was a rock the whole time. I don't know how she handled it, just because we were so young and we were kind of just being kids. But I think I think for the most part, the military does a good job when like your parents get deployed, trying to get all the kids
Mm.
together, taking care of everybody. And I think she was able to kind of latch on to a lot of those family members that were doing the same thing. So she had a good support system, but I know she had a really tough job with that because there was countless deployments, floats, different training exercises and commutes and things like that that she essentially was on her own for. But I couldn't have asked for anything more. And I know I put a lot of stress on her, so I owe her probably for a couple years of anarchy that happened.
Hello, Mum, if you're listening to this, and you've just heard it first. There's a great apology from your son, Nick. And yeah, because Desert Storm and all sorts was going on. It was 1989 when your dad joined, so he would have. Yeah, it has been through some interesting times in the Marine Corps. So fast forward now, and you're at college, and where are you going with this? Because I know you've got brothers who have gone on different directions to you. One of them similar. What happened with your college, and what was going on in your mind? What did you want to do?
That was kind of $1 million question. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And since I was the firstborn, I don't know if they knew kind of how to prompt me. I knew the military was always an option and I did explore it, but I kept it kind of hidden from my dad because I didn't want him to think I was following him because he
Right.
did the opposite. His dad, like my grandfather, one of them was in the Navy, and my dad was like, I'm going Marine Corps just to kind of get away. And I kind of was in the same way where I wanted to do something cooler than what he did, even though what he did was awesome. And I looked into it. I just got medically disqualified at the time because of my eyesight. And now that's all changed, but um, I'm happy because it put me on the path that it did. And he kind of prompted me a little bit to go to school and kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And at that time, I was still involved heavily in athletics because they never played at all, like pretty much during school. So they invested in us to like play as many sports as we wanted to. I originally was going for a different career path, like as a athletic trainer in college, kind of working with injuries. And the first day of school, I realized I did not want to do that, and I changed my major right away.
Right.
And luckily, I found the weight room, and I started seeing that there was like actually a job where you could train athletes in the weight room and kind of get them prepared for competition in their sport. And I fell in love with that and had a lot of good mentors and some other graduate assistants there that kind of took me under their wing and kind of chose that as my career path. And I've been doing that ever since. It's been a long journey. I've been at 8 different schools in some capacity. I've been full-time coaching for a decade, did all my graduate work, worked with as many teams as I could, been across the country, almost doing the same thing that I was doing that we were doing when my dad was in the military, just traveling around and jumping from job to job. But I'm happy that it kind of worked out that way and ultimately kind of led me back to join the military while I was still a coach.
That's interesting because I was just about to say, actually, there's a lot of similarities going on between what you did uh, involuntarily because your dad was moving around with the Marine Corps, and then what you do now. So you're totally flexible, resilient, and able to adapt, aren't you, to move with whatever's required. So we're with all that going around, discovering about the sports coaching and how you can help students. What was the pivotal moment when you decided, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to really make it and settle down in the sporting role?
Yeah, originally I wasn't sure because until I got to school, I didn't realize that it was actually a viable option. And I know in the States more and more, and then professionally around the world, you can see it. It's a little different, like in different countries, like with the academies, but more and more in the United States, like you see that there are options for high school, college, professional, and even tactical now too. Um, Jobs that are all prepared for like athletic performance or job performance. Like there's always been personal trainers and things like that, but it's more of a group setting and like goal-oriented training for a purpose. I didn't know that was a thing until I got to school. And then I really started enjoying it because you're being around athletes that at that time were the ones I worked with were at a really high level. I've seen it at different levels too, and it definitely is off-putting to me because I want to go and I want to be successful. And when I see complacency with athletes, like it doesn't drive me to, I don't want to be a motivator. I want to meet them where they're at and actually help them get to their goals. But if they're not willing to do the work, I kind of shut off because I want to be around those type of people that are pushing the envelope and trying to drive the needle forward.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because I know when I work with people, my clients, and they've got to want to do what they've got to want to do it and want the results, because it doesn't matter how good you are, and it doesn't matter how many strategies, techniques, processes you have. You could be the best coach in the world. If you've got a student, someone who just doesn't want to be there and doesn't want to do it, it's not happening, is it?
Right. That's what I tell my athletes every day. Like, I can't want it more than you. And I had this conversation with some of the players this week because a lot of them are like two of my teams are about to start competition. And like we opened up last night for one of them, and next week we start competition for another. I told them, I was like, respectfully, this is your career. Like, you only get 4 years to play this sport. I don't care what the record is at the end because my life goes on, but you're going to live with this forever. So
Mm.
I can't want this more than you. So I'll meet you wherever you're at. But if you say this is your goal and your work ethic doesn't match it, like there's not much I can do. I'm going to go help someone else that really is invested in what they're doing and is showing me that they're doing everything within their power to achieve those goals. And that's what it comes down to. It's as a coach, I'm supposed to assist in the process. I can't take the reins for you and be on the field and do it. As much as I would like to be back involved in the game and compete. My job is to prepare you to do it, but you have to want to do the work
Yeah,
to get the reward to actually get to play.
And we were talking before about you got American football, you have basketball, and also soccer, as you call it. We call it football here, pretty much. They're really big. Soccer is up and coming, but they're really big for students, and students can earn some significant amounts of money now, can't they? While at
It's
while at college, university.
it's getting kind of unreal. Like the NCAA that kind of overarches the majority of the sports, like in all the divisions, you're able to kind of profit off your name, image, and likeness. So like whether they use your name on jerseys and things like that, or you can promote yourself in certain ways, you can get sponsorships. This is all new in like the last couple years, and it really is kind of changing the landscape of college athletics. It's basically turning it into professional sports in a way where you're just also happen to be getting a degree at the same time. We're gonna kind of see where it all goes, but it's super interesting. It's getting way out of hand with a lot of programs, universities, coaches, athletes, different people like suing the NCAA. So I have no idea where it's taking me. I'm trying not to focus on any of those external things and just do what I can with the athletes there. I used to joke with my athletes like when it first came about and I was back in California, I was like, the only thing you guys should worry about is getting sponsored by a taco truck And then every baseball game, when you're done, just get a few free tacos, promote their thing, and then be out of there. But there's kids that are going on transfer waiver wires, like demanding $1 million to transfer, and they're 19 years old playing a college sport. It's definitely super interesting. I don't know. I wish coaches can kind of capitalize on it a little bit at this point in time, but we'll see where it all takes us. It's going to be a wild ride, I think.
Yeah, well, maybe there's a window there to be an agent or something, perhaps.
I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how likable or how much in need they are of a strength coach, but they can definitely look up with me.
Yeah, definitely. No, the thing is that we talked about reverse engineering this. So what was the day that you decided, well, here we go, I want to go in the military, based on the information of what you said before as well, that your eyesight wasn't that great, which disqualified you from joining, and you wanted to do something different from your dad, just the same as he wanted to do something different from his father as well. So what was the prompt that made you decide, yeah, I'm going?
Yeah, I think part of it was coming up and realizing that there was an age restriction, like, and actually coming down. I think that's what really kind of pushed it even more, because I realized, like, oh, this is fleeting. This could be something, and I didn't want to regret it. Even though it wasn't exactly what I was going to do when I was 18, I had to keep telling myself, I was like, all right, well, you're not 18 anymore. You have this career. Like, you don't always have to just, like, you could flip the page and have a new chapter. It doesn't need to be a new book. And I think I can kind of do both of these things, like, in a way, not juggle them necessarily, but have them complement each other. So having my, like, athletic experience, and then now, like, joining the military, so I can combine the two and maybe do something along those lines. So I think, like, when COVID kind of came around and everything was shut down, I think that sparked it a little bit more, but I had already been talking to a recruiter about, like, what my options and things were. Just COVID kind of elongated the process and really delayed everything. And I was able to finally, like, get everything processed after I moved again and was able to do it. But I think it really was just kind of getting to a place where I could be part of something bigger, and coaching was always that. But at the end of the day, like, you can't really replicate, like, the team atmosphere and the culture that comes from the military. And I think at that time, before that, I didn't really realize how much that impacted me and influenced me over the years. And I knew I wanted to be part of it. Like, it was kind of a weird feeling always walking around. And even if I had, like, a full beard like I did before, people would always ask me if I was in the military. And, like, it was kind of a source of pride to, like, say no, but, like, I grew up around one. And I think that, like, over time maybe just chipped away. And I was like, if everybody thinks that, like, why don't I just make sure that I solidify it and actually get to do those things. And I think it was just a multitude of different things, and the timing worked out really well. And I was able to kind of get what I initially sought out to do. And so far I've been able to kind of balance the two and learn a new skill, a new profession, and let it balance between the other and complement the other. So I'm enjoying it so far.
Good. And it's interesting that you say it's a different chapter rather than a new book. Mind you, after you've really gone on your journey in the military, there might well be a book in there. And I think that COVID did help many people. I know it caused some challenges for some. For others, I know it enabled them to reflect on things and decide what they wanted to do in the future. For instance, I finished the Pathfinder program, right in that, and did the joeteams.com, created that website. And I think that you probably did the same, just had a regroup and thought, right, everyone's been asking me, am I in the military? Well, it's about time I did something about it.
I think that was right. I had a lot more free time when COVID happened too, because coaching really is all in person. And even though we tried to shift and do a lot of stuff online, I had projects that, like, on thousands of post-it notes and things that I wanted to do. At that time, I was talking to a recruiter. I started a podcast. I was still like contacting 150 athletes, like, by text message or email. I started writing articles, which were terrible, but only sending them to my athletes, so they couldn't. I couldn't get criticized too much. But yeah,
Hey,
it
but
was
at least you did it though, which is good.
that's the thing. That's the thing too. It afforded me the opportunity to do it, and it kind of put since there was no timeline, I forced myself in a sense to, like, what better time? You're never going to get this opportunity again. And it was very weird in the beginning, but I think people that took a hold of it and realized, like, you could shift the mindset of it, and you could capitalize on this in a way, like, without it being like ingenuine or ugly. But you can actually, like, make something more of this and turn it into a positive. I think it really helped in a lot of ways. And I definitely benefited from it, as hard as it is for people to hear or say. Um, I won't say that it was enjoyable to go through all the things, but it really did shape kind of where my path is now and what I'm currently doing in a lot of ways.
Right. So you enlisted in 2022, I believe.
Correct.
What's for the reservists over in the States, United States, what's the process and how long do you go through? And I suppose you still have your drill sergeant major, pretty much, and that sort of thing going on.
Yeah, so we go through pretty much everything with active duty. Since you don't come in with any experience, you're going through the gambit of everything. So I was one of the older guys, along with a few other people that were either maybe going to warrant school or officer candidate school after, and you're in basic training with everybody else, whether you're going National Guard, Reserve, active duty. You're there with everybody that has no formal military training at all. So I think I was there from September to early December of 2022. I want to say I think it's 10 weeks. And then
Yeah.
because of COVID, there's like a little transitional period where you're kind of in waiting. There was like a yellow phase where you gotta make sure medically everybody's good, and it definitely threw things off a little bit, but you're doing everything normal. It's a lot of hurry up and wait, as everybody knows, that's gone through it. A lot of walk here, say this, do that. So definitely, as someone older going in, that my dad's only advice was, like, just be patient and play the game. Like,
Yeah.
you know what it is, play the game.
Yeah, and there's a lot of on the wagon, off the wagon as well, and lots of other stuff. And I know because at this time, what you would have been 31, I suppose, roundabout.
Yeah, 32 right at that point.
32. So you're a bit of a granddad, really, because
Felt like it.
because I remember when I transferred in the reserves to Special Forces for selection. I guess how old I was.
32?
37.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I was in good enough shape was I've been a physical training instructor. So I'm pretty much like you've been a coach. Then you knew how to condition your body to make sure you were at it. So I would imagine that just the same as when I was running against 67 in a group of 67 lads, basically, they were in the 20s, 23. I was 37, and I still managed to come. I still managed to come third out of that.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So, and I bet you did exactly the same, because you thought, you're not going to beat me, fellas. Not at least without putting it all in.
That was the plan, and then after boot camp, it became a little bit more of what I expected going to officer candidate school. Again, you were kind of with everybody. You were good with all three components, whether they were active, National Guard, or reservists, and you're kind of getting graded based off your OML points. And for active duty, the soldiers that were going through all those candidates, like where they ranked was going to get their branch. And I was still competitive because I already knew what my branch was, but it definitely was different, and actually learning more of kind of the leadership traits and like going through all the documents and everything that kind of comprises like being an officer. That was what I kind of expected more so to do. But every school is a little bit different. It's that not either of them like kind of fully prepare you for what you're doing, but at the same time, it really is, both of them are just a crash course to kind of get you in line, and then you got to do a lot of on the job training as always. But definitely you got to do everything if you're, no matter what component you're in, even as a reservist. And then you stick after that. I'm just sticking to my normal kind of reserve duties, which over here it's usually 2 or 3 days every once a month, and then a 2 week long ish in the summer, like FTX, where we're doing field training exercises and kind of doing more of what our MOS looks like. And then whatever other schools kind of we have lined up, like I have, like we talked about, kind of BOLIC for me, like basic officer leadership course. That is kind of what's next in the pipeline for me.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the same as our unit in the UK, our reservists, which used to be called a territorial. We call it a 2 week battle camp, effectively, and then you can do other stuff as well. If you've got spare time, you can volunteer for posts all around the world, and you can volunteer to be attached to an active unit as well, which is probably what you can do over in the States as well. So from the officer training corps, then how much is intellectual, how much is physical, and how much is just downright mindset and just needing to think, I've got to get this done, whatever?
Actually, at the school, I think a lot of it is the last bit, but I think I went in like physically prepared for it. I compete in two sports currently that don't do a lot of running. So that was one of the things that I had to kind of pick back up a lot more since my like college lacrosse playing days. So kind of hitting the road and running, that was the only thing that really I was a little bit nervous about, because I wanted to make sure that I was fully prepared for it, because most of the time I'll just spend in the gym. But physically, like, you just need to be able to be at least in the top third of all your soldiers. Like, you don't need to be the best, but you definitely can't be the worst, because me as a coach, and then me like as an officer, I want to be able to practice what I preach. And I don't
Yeah.
want I don't want to tell anybody to do something that I've never done before or I can't do. So that was one big thing, to make sure that like that wasn't a limiting factor for myself. I think intellectually and like mindset wise, just kind of learning all the stuff on the fly at school was a lot, especially like military history, and like just how you actually like the vernacular and writing everything down, and like the formats of stuff, and like drill and ceremony, a lot of those things that I leaned on a lot of the other candidates in there, because a lot of them were enlisted, some of them were sergeants, some of them were actually outranking some of the cadre that we had.
Right.
So leaning on them from their 5, 6, 7, 8 years of experience already in the Army was super helpful, and kind of put me at ease, so that I could put my 2 cents in when it came to like PT, and like, hey, these are the strengths I have, and then they can help me and double down on kind of my areas of concern. And it was definitely a team effort when it comes down to it. And hopefully you see those people when you get to the big Army and you're at your post, and those are eventually going to be your peers as you kind of go throughout your career. So I think that was honestly the best part, and it definitely put myself at ease, knowing that people weren't trying to really just backstab you. Everybody was trying to, for the greater good, help you with your commission so that you could actually be successful. And maybe one day you're going to be working side by side with each other.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I remember when I did my PTI's course, we get, you do different things. You do battle PT, gymnastics, then you do anatomy and physiology. Then we come to the swimming section. So we went to Berlin because we were this course was in Sennelager, Germany, West Germany. We went to Berlin, and the first thing they did, because we were spending a week at the Olympic Stadium, the first thing they did, our instructors took us to the Olympic Stadium swimming pool and just said, up there. And we look, and it's a 10-meter board, diving board. And they said, get up there now. We don't care how you do it. We want you to either dive in, jump in, belly flop, whatever. You're going to jump off there and show that you can do it. Because if you do not do it, you failed. Because we're not sending you back to your unit as instructors if you can't do this. Because we need to know you can jump higher, run faster, or at least as fast, be as good as the students that you're going to be guiding, or at least up there with them. Otherwise, you don't gain respect. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. I think you could see it with when I was in basic, especially too, and I was more like kind of a fly on the wall because nothing was really, I knew I was going to get through, like not to like be arrogant about it, but like I knew enough stuff and I was ready and prepared enough. But watching some of them, like they started like idolizing like the drill sergeants because they're like, oh, look how he can shoot, like look how he can run, look how he can do PT, look how he knows all these things. Like I already had that experience, like kind of watching my dad grow up. So like the those drill sergeants and like some of them, like the cadre, I'll pull stuff from them, but in my eyes, they were never gonna like outshine the things that I already learned from him. And but I could see it from a lot of the other like trainees, like they're looking at someone who in their eyes is like squared away perfect. And their whole goal is to try to get to that position. And I think you're right. Like you lose a lot of respect for someone, especially in the beginning when they're honestly telling you what to do. And
Yeah.
there's no question about it. They're telling you. So you have to be able to like prove it in a way. And you don't necessarily need to, but I think that solidifies the point even more when someone questions you and then you go out and exceed the standard. That puts it, one, it makes it attainable for anybody.
Yeah.
Two, it shows that you can actually reach that goal. You just have to be willing to do it. And I'm sure there's enough people scared of the diving board that when you put that pass fail, like no go in their mind, they're more apt to do it than okay, it's fine, you go home. We'll just
Yeah.
you'll be a fine instructor without it.
And it's interesting as well, because I'm sure you've seen it in your career as a coach in different universities, colleges, and probably when there's money introduced now, there's a lot of prima donnas as well who think they're owned the world. No mention, no names, no Pat drill. But I do know that I see so-called leaders in Civilian Street now, and they are managers of people, and really they couldn't manage a party in a brewery, really. And yet they've got that position, and if you look at what they're delivering, they're telling people to do what they can't do themselves.
Yeah, you definitely see it a lot. I tell some of our interns all the time who are kind of coming in and they're interested in the profession and they're kind of shadowing us almost in an apprenticeship role to see if they want to do this as a career or they do know they want to do it in a career and they're trying to gain some experience. I give them the analogy all the time. It's like, I don't trust a skinny chef. Like
Yeah.
if you they better be trying everything they're doing, like everything they put on a plate, like they should be at least taste testing a little bit. And I tell them all the time, is like, if you want these athletes to kind of buy into what you're doing, then you need to make sure that you're confident in how you project yourself and how you speak to them and that you can demonstrate it and do those things. And I think that carries over the same as the military too. And it's interesting being like an officer when you first start because you really don't know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, the biggest thing is to lean on like those senior enlisted and all your NCOs and say, listen, hey, I really don't know what this is. Can you help me? And just be humble with it and then get up to speed as fast as possible so that like some of those younger privates and like lower enlisted, like the junior enlisted know, hey, he might not know exactly what I do day to day all the time, or he doesn't know how to turn this lug wrench the right way, whatever it is. But he's putting in the effort to try. And I try to do that in the civilian side and do it in the military side if I don't know exactly what it is, so that I could try to get up to speed as fast as possible. And for me, just be a jack of all trades. I'm not really particularly good at one thing. So if I know a little bit about everything, then I think that puts me in a better position to kind of pull the strings a little bit and make sure that we're going in the right direction versus me being the one necessarily paddling the boat every time.
Yeah, that's a great point. And interestingly, you mentioned about mentors and coaches. How important have you found them in your career so far?
They've been huge. I still lean on a lot of them. Obviously, like my parents are super big in different ways. I lean on them for things. But both coaches that I've had in the past, even colleagues and like former interns or graduate assistants I've had kind of under me are now kind of at that peer level where I'm reaching out to them for something that they're really successful in. I think you can find mentors in kind of every capacity, and they don't necessarily need to have more experience than you. They don't need to be older than you. Because a lot of the like NCOs I have are younger than me, but they have a lot more experience. They know something I don't know. And to me, that's where I kind of see a mentorship role, like someone that is doing something better than you and something that you want to improve on or learn about. To me, I'm the mentee, like I'm the apprentice, like I'm the student. But yeah, that's all been like super helpful professionally in the military, coaching, personally. There's always people I'm reaching out to try to help in some sort of way. If they're willing to do it, I'm willing to learn and give them the respect that they deserve for like giving me their time, which is valuable, to help me kind of improve in whatever that venture kind of looks like.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. And what you're doing now with your military career as an officer, you've decided that you're coming over to the combat engineers, which is great. So a fellow sapper, high five, well done.
There you go.
And here's something where I've been in probably about 3 years or so. So I knew a little bit about building bridges and how to do stuff, right? And we got this officer, and he's one pip wonder, right? With all due respect to your one pip, so he's a lieutenant, fresh out of training. He's just finished his combat engineers officer training. He comes in, and we're doing a bridge, and we've got to reverse strip it, i.e., we're going across the gap, taking it off on the other side of the gap, and just keep going, right? Pepper pot. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning, right? I think it was around about January, February. It's freezing, and we'd been working continuously for about 72 hours, so we were a bit tired. To say the least. And he come up to me, he said, O'Connor, he said, that headless pin is in the wrong place. And I knew it wasn't, right? Because you have to do it in a different configuration when you're doing a reverse strip. So with all due respect to your rank, sir, it's in exactly the right place. Because we'd already had a brief about it and been briefed by our commander, section commander. He said, O'Connor, move that. I said, sir, with all due respect. And this exchange went on a few more times, and then I was becoming a little bit agitated because I thought, if I do this, I don't want to be the bloke on the other side when we come to strip it out and they say, O'Connor, you put that in the wrong place. And so I was getting a bit agitated, and fortunately my staff sergeant come along, put his arm around the lieutenant, said, sir, come with me. O'Connor, carry on. Right. So hopefully you'll remember that, because I know there'll be times when you go up the ranks and you'll see your officers that are under you, under your command, who maybe make the same mistake. And so it's interesting and very, very true what you say about it doesn't matter what rank they are, how old they are. If they know something more or they are doing something better than you, maybe you should listen.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So when do you start with your officer training for the engineers?
Right now, kind of waiting on scheduling for everything. Hopefully kind of the tail end of this year or early summer is what I'm kind of targeting for. And then it'll be a pretty lengthy kind of course. But it's kind of it's up to my commanding officer and then battalion to kind of get it all approved and then see how it kind of pans out, balancing obviously like the civilian side too. But I'm excited for it. It's definitely something a little bit outside of my scope. Because talking to the other lieutenants that have gone through the course in the civilian world, they're all engineers in some sort of capacity or work construction. Um, the only thing I've done is one summer of roofing. So I don't think that really is going to help too much on the side of it. So it'll be challenging, but I'm also excited to kind of go through the course and see how I handle it and learn all those things. So then I can come back and actually be a better platoon leader and understand a little bit more of what my soldiers are doing on a day-to-day basis. So hopefully I get the date soon and can actually kind of start planning ahead and researching on what exactly I'm getting myself into. But I'm definitely excited about the opportunity to go through the course and learn.
Well, I do wish you the very best for that in a career as a combat engineer. So, as I said, we've reversed engineered this. So, what challenges did you face? Have you faced transitioning from coach to the military?
Yeah, it's I think since I'm not doing a full transition, I'm went in and then kind of came back, or I go on the weekends or for a couple days and then come back. It's really just kind of changing like jobs and like changing like what hat I'm specifically wearing. I'm still kind of almost in an officer role when I come back and I'm coaching with my athletes. Um, and then I'm still kind of in a coaching role when I go to my unit and work with my soldiers. I think there's a lot of traits and there's a lot of similarities between the two that I'm kind of able to use. Transitioning wise, it was really just kind of getting up to speed. For me, since I'm doing both of the things, I'm trying to see how the other influences one another so that I can actually complement it and take some of those skills and bring it back to the other profession. And for me, I think really it was just making sure that I was leaning on a lot of the people around me because I don't think doing it by myself, I was going to be able to accomplish all the stuff that I did, whether it be my coaching career or starting off like in the military, like the team and the people, my friends and family that I've kind of leaned on around me have been the biggest help kind of in this transition period and then being able to sustain both of these um, projects basically at the same time.
Good. Thank you. Now, I do know that you've got a lot more of a life ahead of you. To date, though, you've been fairly well successful in what you've done to be able to balance life and balance things and moving around as a child to different schools, and now as an adult moving to different schools and traveling up to 3,000 miles to different colleges, then reversing the journey. So, what's the secret of your success and how do you do it?
Oof. I don't know. It sounds like I'm doing it a lot better than when you put it like that. But really it's definitely been difficult at times to try to do those things. And I think it was just kind of like I said before, being able to rely on all those people around me and kind of have a purpose in mind of like what I'm doing. I think I think that has really kind of kept me on track, just knowing that what I'm doing, it's like more than myself. Like all those people that are in my corner, kind of on my team, assisting me through the process. Like there's definitely been a lot of hard times and a lot of difficult things that have come up. But those people have been super supportive and super encouraging and kind of doubled down on me as I was trying to either invest in myself or do something outside of the norm. For me, it's just trying to keep my head down as much as possible and just realize that like what I'm doing is in a sense kind of like a passion project. Like I only really want to do the things that I enjoy. And if I'm passionate about it, like I know that sure I'll get like I'll get like some anxiety over things, but that's because I actually really care about it. And I know that if I'm passionate about stuff and then I work hard at it and I have a good work ethic, then that commitment and kind of that dedication and determination is what's ultimately going to make me successful. So those things have to line up. Having someone in my corner, being able to kind of rely on other people and bounce ideas off of, making sure that what I'm doing I really enjoy and it's not something, it's not transactional where it's just this equals financial gain. And then just making sure that I'm putting in the work, the hard work and effort that actually is equivalent to the goals that I've set. I think that's ultimately like what's made me successful. And success I know is different for everybody else, but for me, it's kind of pushing towards those things that I've set aside and want to achieve.
Good, thank you. And you did mention that things haven't always gone to plan during that part of your chat. How do you deal with failure?
As much as possible, try not to blow up and just embrace it. I think for myself, I mean, you can use it. You can think of it as kind of like an after action report and look at like what worked well, kind of what didn't work well, what could I have done differently. And I try to do that with some of the planned things that I have. So whether it be coaching and a team comes back in and I kind of evaluate how it went, or like a briefing or something that I have to do for my unit, like I can go back through and kind of evaluate myself. But when it comes to just kind of like everyday failures or a bigger picture too, it's just same thing. It's reflecting on it, kind of embracing it, and knowing that I would rather I would rather fail fast and kind of fail spectacularly and then understand what it is and realize that that's just a part of what it is. It's just a part of life. And then having the humility to kind of work on it and try to overcome it to either not repeat those actions or to improve what happens the next time I might be put in that situation. So it's just kind of an always forward mentality and just kind of pushing the needle and never quitting at something. There's times that might you realize it's the juice isn't worth the squeeze and it's not worth putting a certain amount of effort in to get like a minuscule result, but it doesn't like defeat the goal of no matter what, we're still trying to make progress. We're not stagnant because you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no kind of maintaining. So for me, it's just always kind of moving forward and embracing the things that happen, reflecting on them and remembering them so that hopefully I'm not repeating those mistakes as spectacularly as last time.
I'm with you on that one. I've made some spectacular mistakes as well. Fail is first attempt in learning. I've said that before and I'll say it again.
I like that.
First attempt in learning, because you know what? You're not going to get it right all the time. If you beat yourself up too much now, it doesn't serve a purpose. So when your dad, right, signed up for the Marine Corps 35 years ago or just over, right, you've only ever known that life really. And you mentioned before, you, your brothers, and your mum especially signed a contract with the military. So you've had the military psyche all through. How transferable do you think the values, the lessons, and everything are to Civilian Street?
I think they're all transferable. I know like a lot of the soft skills are kind of the big things, like just kind of the character traits and like your demeanor and your attitudes towards stuff. Because you're put in a lot of situations that kind of are exacerbated or they're extrapolated a little bit more than what maybe civilians would go through. It's
Yeah.
just to the nth degree. A lot of the hard skills, like I know, are a little bit more difficult. Like you're not really diffusing bombs or you're building bridges necessarily all the time, or you're not kind of behind the scope of a rifle when you try to like transition over to a corporate job. But I think nonetheless, like there's plenty of character traits and like situations that you've been in that ultimately like make you more successful, build your patience, like build your demeanor, build like your determination and that attitude that you could take away from the military that definitely helps you as you transition out of it. And for myself, kind of being still in that side, I can see the skills and I can see things that maybe I do when I'm at my unit or how my unit is like going through a process of getting ready for like pushing out for an FTX or setting up base camp or anything like that. And I could take a lot of those skills, the planning, I could take like um, just certain situations and be able to kind of use that in the civilian job and kind of benefit that. So I I I think they're all transferable in a sense. And
Yeah.
there's plenty of careers too that come out of it that you can transition right into the civilian side as well that are e exactly like word for word what you were doing in the military, just doing it for a different entity. So um a lot of good things, a lot of good comes out of that, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because even when I've spoken to guys who maybe have been in a mortar platoon or infantry, and they say, well, you know, how am I going to use those skills? Well, it's all the rest that comes with it, all
Right.
the other skills that have had to get them into position to do what they've got to do. Because that mortar is just a small part of the actual lead up to the action, because there's all that preparation to make sure you're on point at the right time in the right place. So yeah, perfect example. What does the future hold for you now?
I think right now it's just kind of seeing what I can do with both these careers taken forward. Um, I know balance is kind of a hard thing to say for either of the professions, like trying to balance like work life, like in the military, work life as a coach. And then now that I add like military work and life into it, it's definitely more of juggling and kind of seeing like at times where the priorities lie. But for me, it's just seeing where both these kind of professions and where my life takes me. I think at one point I'd like to get to where I can blend the two even more so together and start working in some of these tactical units as like a coach in the civilian side. And it's starting to become more prevalent where you're working with either a battalion or a training cell or even like special operations units as a contracted coach. And I think that would be even more kind of suitable for me, just having a military background now and still being in, but then also all the coaching experience and everything that I have from the past pretty much decade. So I think eventually that's where it is. Maybe cut down on the moves a little bit would be a nice change of pace for sure. But yeah, just right now, learning everything I can about the military side and like what officership looks like and leadership in that capacity and how the reserves work and different components of the Army that I really wasn't accustomed to or didn't know as fully now being in it. And then just seeing how that impacts my coaching, see how coaching impacts that, and then we'll kind of see what my career paths take from there. But I definitely see the two blending more together and being able to utilize the skills that I've learned in both of them, maybe for one career versus multiple.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your service and your future service as well to continue. How can people get in touch?
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Joe. And yeah, for anybody that actually has questions for me or wants to get in touch with me, my social media on Instagram and Twitter is _N_OB. My website is coachobrien.com. Just spelled out my last name without the apostrophe. And best email is coachnobrien@gmail.com. I'd be happy to talk to anybody that's kind of interested or wants to transition out and be a coach, or is a coach and wants to look at the military side or tactical. Anything we talked about. I know I'm kind of all over the place with stuff. So if you got a question that doesn't even have to do with any of those things, feel free to reach out.
Thank you. And one last question, the Columbo question is, what's the one tip you will give to a veteran coming out of the military or someone that wants to go into the military? What's the one, or just someone who wants to get successful in their life and just get rid of the other stuff? What's the one
Right.
tip you will give them?
I've heard this one constantly, and I think it reigns true. I think I first heard it from Jocko Willink. He's a former Navy SEAL. And I could see it, like, thinking about it even more and more. It's to find a purpose and like find a new mission. I think a lot of people transitioning, even if it's not out of the military, but if it is out of the military, like, you realize that that's every bit a part of you. Like, it's hard to describe. It's the same as with some of my athletes that get out and they don't know what to do. Like, they don't want to lift anymore. Like, they're not part of a team where you're on bus rides, you're competing, you're training, you're doing everything together. Like, when you're in the military, you're like in the field, you're at class. Like, those are the only people you talk to. Those are your neighbors. Like, you're so invested in it and you're so surrounded by it. Like, it becomes your kind of identity. And when you leave it, it's very difficult to find something to replace it or even match it. So I think finding a community, finding some sort of new kind of camaraderie in a team, and finding something that you're passionate about and that gives you a new purpose, even if it's not like another forever job or it's not something you're unsure about, just finding something that you can work every day, you can enjoy, and you can kind of strive for and set new goals to try to do. I think that's the best thing you can do, to keep you like fulfilled and keep you motivated and kind of driving towards something new. And I think the team and the community and stuff hopefully follows suit with that, so that you can have, kind of like I mentioned before, other people on your side. I think you can't do it alone. So find a mission, find a purpose, and keep always moving forward towards something new.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you also for your time today. I really enjoyed our chat and we'll be keeping in touch.
I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you very much. It was great to talk to you today.
Thank you. And finally, thank you for joining in, and have a brilliant day.